Well, today I am with Dr. Paul Meechan, who's an expert in the biosafety field, has a long history of working with pharmaceutical companies, and he comes from the CDC as well. Hello, Dr. Meechan. How are you today?
I'm great, Jeff. Good to see you again.
Yeah,
What's today's topic?
this is a part two, you might say, of talking about vaccines. The other day we talked about why they go bad. So I'll put that link in this description of this recording. And that was great information. But let's talk about vaccines around the globe. You know, it's not only about the United States. It's been 1 year now since the pandemic.
And it's going to be longer because the vaccine distribution is a problem. And we were talking about it in the first episode. We were talking about the issues with the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines and how cold they need to be stored. And that's impractical in most of the world. So a number of other countries have developed vaccines that are going to be a little bit more stable at room temperature. So India, for example, has actually licensed the AstraZeneca vaccine, which isn't available in the States, but is available in Europe. And that can be stored at refrigerator temperature. They're also developing a vaccine that's based on the whole SARS-CoV-2 virus and inactivating that formula, pickling it. And the Russians have done the same thing. The Chinese have done the same thing. You won't see that in the United States. This country tends to be very leery of whole virus inactivated vaccines. We had a bad experience in the 1950s with polio. And so the United States will tend not to do that if they don't have to. But in other places of the world, it's going to be a viable option. And the resulting vaccine can be stored, at the refrigerator temperatures. And that sort of cold chain can be maintained across the world. So there are a number of different options for the world to get the vaccine that don't rely on the technology of Moderna or Pfizer and that need to keep it ultra cold.
Well, it's good news to hear. And those around the globe that might be watching this will no doubt appreciate that. But here's another question. Most of the shots here in the US, there's 2 of them that's required. And it can be a challenge just to get 1 shot.
Yes,
now we're asking for 2. How does that affect the planet, other countries?
Absolutely is a problem. However, unfortunately, most of those vaccines that I just mentioned, the Russian, the Chinese, the Indian vaccines, also require 2 doses. And the reason for that is actually pretty straightforward when you think about it. The first shot is called a priming dose. And so it introduces it to your immune system, and your immune system goes, wow, I don't recognize that. I need to make antibodies. And then it peaks and it starts to go away. And you come back with the second dose, it goes, oh, I recognize that. And it really amplifies the immune response. And so the idea of the second shot is to give it 3 to 4 weeks or so, and then stimulate it again so you get a much more robust immune response. And so you can get the sort of 94, 95% asymptomatic coverage immunity that you're getting with most of the vaccines that we're seeing, the Moderna, the Pfizer vaccine. When you look at something like the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that only takes a single shot, you're getting slightly lower coverage. They're protecting you against severe disease and death, but they're not absolutely protective. However, for what we're really interested in for protecting against COVID, those are the important parts, making sure that no one gets hospitalized or dies from the exposure to COVID.
So, yeah, in some countries, in these villages, these remote areas, they want the best option, and what you described is great. But let's talk about, for a moment, tourism. I heard on the news this morning that people want to go to restaurants and movies and travel. They want to get out of their country. And, I was supposed to go to Greece last year, canceled that trip. What's it going to take to where we can do that kind of stuff again?
Depends on the country. So if you're talking about a fairly developed country, go into the EU, going to Mexico, going to an area that is fairly established, but especially by air travel. Later this year, it may be possible. In areas where you're looking to get off the map and go places that are relatively remote, the WHO is suggesting it could take up to 2024 based on how long it will take to get the vaccine throughout the world. And so depending on where you want to go, you may be able to book it this year. But if you're looking for something a little bit more exotic, it may have to wait for a considerable while longer.
Well, some unknowns, but good news is definitely what we're seeing. So Dr. Paul Meechan, I appreciate your time today, and we'll do another topic soon.
Sounds wonderful, Jeff. Talk to you then.